Let us start with silence. Let us surround ourselves with silence. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. In silence, we face the overwhelming questions about evil, providence, and human responsibility. Let us keep silent as we reflect on the importance of remembering the Holocaust, of confronting the atrocity. We must remind ourselves that the Holocaust was not 6 million. It was one person, plus one person, plus one. We will light 6 memorial candles for the 6 million people who were murdered during the Holocaust. I have invited those who themselves are Holocaust survivors, as well as anyone who is a child of survivor or closely related to a survivor, to come forward and to light a candle. Please come forward. Come around here. We'll start on that side and move it this way. Come over. Okay. So, how many people are we? We are 4. Someone. So, will you light 2? And you'll light. I think that's about as far as we can go. Okay. Will you light 2? And you each light 1, and you light 2. And between each candle, I'm going to make a dedication. Okay, so we'll start with 1, and then I'll go. The lighting of the we light the first candle in memory of the children who were killed. Children who lived in a frightening world. As we light this candle, we remember their smiles, their hopes, their laughter, and their unfulfilled dreams. We light the second candle in memory of all those mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers who were killed, for all the love, the wisdom, the life experience, the guidance, and the hugs that were lost. We light the third candle in memory of teachers, scholars, and community leaders who were killed. We light this candle for all the rabbis, songwriters, and poets who created Jewish culture in Europe. We light the fourth candle in honor of all those non-Jews who hid Jews or played a part in saving their lives during the Holocaust. Their heroism and courage to stand up for another people in the face of evil inspires us to remember that we too must stand up against evil. We light the fifth candle in memory of other groups who were targeted by the Nazis. We bring to mind the gypsies, homosexuals, political dissidents, and people with disabilities. Let this remind us to be accepting and appreciate differences among people. We light the sixth candle for all the people who were killed during the Holocaust, men, women, and children who have no survivors to say Kaddish, the memorial prayer, for them. Today, we remember them. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life.
We remember you, you are not forgotten. We remember in our prayers and song. We remember your lives and your courage. In our hearts and minds, your legacy lives on. In the blowing wind that calls your names, you are there. In the dancing of the Sabbath flames, your light lives on. In the memories you left behind, the hole you left on humankind. Anachnu, Anachnu, Nizkor. We remember you, 6 million lives no longer. We remember in your undying faith. In our lifetime, you've become our inspiration to shine your light for dignity and strength. In the blowing wind that calls your name, you are there. In the dancing of the Sabbath flame, your light lives on. In the memories you left behind, the hole you left on humankind. Anachnu, Anachnu, Nizkor. We remember you in the faces of our children. We remember through the decades you've been gone. We remember you, the unsung heroes. In your memory, the Jewish people carry on. In the blowing wind that calls your names, you are there. In the dancing of the Sabbath flames, your light lives on. In the memories you left behind, the hole you left on humankind. Anachnu, Anachnu, Nizkor. Anachnu, Anachnu, Nizkor. Anachnu, Anachnu, Nizkor.
Quoting from Still Here, Inspiration from Survivors and Liberators of the Holocaust, a book by June Hirsch. Quote, as one survivor told me, you get nothing from being bitter. Living a good life is the best revenge. Survivors stress love over hate, understanding over discourse, and the value of living a useful, productive life. Perhaps it is resilience, and perhaps their resourcefulness, and perhaps luck, or all of these together. But so many went on to build a life, never forgetting the past, while simultaneously embracing the opportunities of a new life. May the memories of those who perished be a blessing to all of us, and may the courage and resilience of the survivors be an inspiration always. As I mentioned the words courage and resilience, we cannot but think of the millions of people in the midst of a brutal onslaught in Ukraine right now. Survivors and descendants of those who endured the atrocities of World War II. On this day of remembrance, our heart goes out to them. Sheila Pillay will now share her knowledge and experience with the history and current community of the Czech Republic. At the conclusion of her presentation, we will recite the Mourner's Kaddish. I want to express my thanks to Larissa and Nancy Vega, who helped to plan and broadcast this event, and of course, to Sheila. Thank you to all who have gathered here today to remember. Sheila.
Get myself situated here. Whoops. I know some of you, I probably spent much of the dinner talking, oh, sorry, okay. I know I've had dinner with some of you in the audience, and I probably spent much of the dinner talking about the experience that Herb and I had and right before the COVID hit us all. We were in the Czech Republic for 2.5 months, 3.5 months rather, and photographing what was left Judaically there. And it was the most incredible experience of my life. And I want to share our journey and what this all means to all of us. My talk today, and I'm going to do this quickly because I know that everybody has things to do soon after. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the survival of 1,564 Czech Torahs and why I was so inspired by this survival. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jewish life through the Shoah in the Czech Republic and what's happening today. And then I'm going to share the most exciting news, but I'll save that for later. So 7.5 years ago, my synagogue in Sharon, Massachusetts, decided to restore their Czech Torah scroll. Perhaps your synagogues also had a scroll that was in a cabinet somewhere in your synagogue, and it said Czech Torah scroll from such and such town. But we did. We had ours in the foyer of the synagogue, and we decided to restore it and make it kosher. And I was one of 5 or 6 photographers that documented a whole year of all kinds of exciting events and culminating in the return of the scroll fully restored by a scribe who actually lives in Western Massachusetts, and he's pictured at the bottom of the screen. His name is Rabbi Kevin Hale. He restored the Torah for us. The Torahs themselves were on, all 1,564 were on an unbelievable journey. Just about the time of the transports of all of the Jews from the Czech Republic, an edict went out from actually a group of Jews to collect all Judaica because they believed that after the Shoah, or after what was about to happen, they needed to be in safekeeping so that when everybody returned, they could be returned to them again. And we all know that never happened. So they were stored in, the Torahs themselves were stored in a warehouse, and they languished there for many years. They actually were moved into a synagogue outside of Prague, and the synagogue was complete with holes in the roof. And so a lot of the Torahs that were there were really falling apart, and and they had been documented by this group of Jews. They were all encased in what looked like body bags, but they were canvas bags. And the communists decided that they really wanted to sell off some of this stuff. And so there was an art dealer by the name of Eric Esterich who was wandering around Eastern Europe looking for artifacts to sell. He was an art dealer. And he was asked to look at these Torahs, and these Torahs, he knew someone in London who would pay for the transport, a philanthropist in London who would pay for buy the Torahs and transport them all to London, to the Westminster Synagogue. And so that happened in 1964. 1,564 Torahs arrived in 2 big trucks, and they were opened up by the congregation as if this whole congregation met outside, and they moved all the Torahs in one by one and stored them in the synagogue. And then what do you do with 1,564 Torahs? Well, the Westminster Synagogue formed a foundation, and they decided to disseminate these Torahs all over the world. And that's what they did. And our synagogue got one, and I know that there are actually in Massachusetts 50 of them, and in all of the United States there are over 1,000, and the rest are scattered throughout the world. So let's talk now a little bit about the Czech Republic and our journey. I had this epiphany that I wanted to go to the Czech Republic and photograph what was left Judaically. I had no idea what I was going to find, none at all. Herb and I talked about it beforehand, and we were concerned that it was going to be a very depressing journey because we had heard that there weren't very many Jews left. We had no idea what was left. Anyway, to our amazing surprise, the towns, we went to 132 towns, which were the collection points for these Torahs and all other Judaica. And to our surprise and astonishment, and I can't tell you how inspiring it was, private people, municipalities, government or agencies restored synagogues all over the country. And this was not done for tourism. It was done because these were sacred places. And many of them are now art galleries. They're wonderful places where the communities meet, and they're wonderful for playing music because the acoustics is so incredible. And so we visited all of these towns, and from all these towns, I've photographed about 2,000 usable photographs, which are now uploaded into the Memorial Scrolls Trust website. So if you're interested, you can see all 2,000, and you'll probably fall asleep. But now let me kind of change direction a little bit, and I just want to tell you a little bit about the Jews in the Czech lands. They lived there for over 1,000 years, peacefully living there. Of course, you know, Maria Theresa of Austro-Hungarian fame was not very friendly to the Jews, and they were cast out, and there was all kinds of ugly stuff going on. But in 1848, freedom was and equality was offered to all Jews, and they began to live a normal life. And they were very, very integrated into the Czech lands. The Czech lands are Bohemia and Moravia. They were originally kingdoms, and they're two sections of the country. I think I had a map here, and you can see that the Moravia is on the blue side, and on that whatever other color that is, purple, I guess. Anyway, that's Bohemia, and most people who go to go to the Czech Republic to visit, they're in awe of Prague. It's the most spectacularly gorgeous part of the country, and it is, in fact, the country itself is absolutely beautiful. The photograph here that's the background. I'm sure that if you've been to Prague, you've been to the very famous cemetery where there are layers and layers of people buried there, and there are lots of famous rabbis there and scholars, and it's quite an incredible place. Then from 1918 to 1938, the Czech Republic was then named Czechoslovakia, and it was free, and Jews were integrated, and it was a very secular country. So there was lots and lots of intermarriage, and they say today that all Czechs have some Jewish DNA, and that is probably one of the reasons why there's practically no anti-Semitism there today. There are a couple of right-wing groups that cause some trouble, but basically Jews are regarded as Czechs, and they live freely and with care and love, and probably it's the reason why all of these buildings that were in these towns all over the place were regarded as buildings that needed to be restored and cared for. So right before the Shoah, there were about 120,000 Jews living in Bohemia and Moravia. Only about 30,000 survived, and most of them left. Most of them left right after the war, and they moved to Israel, they moved to the US, they moved wherever. And in 1948, when the communists arrived, more left. And from 1948 until the Velvet Revolution, there were only actually 3,000 Jews that were that identified themselves, because during communist time there was in fact lots of anti-Semitism, and so people did not want to say, "Hi, I'm Jewish," you know. So and a lot of children were growing up not even knowing that they had any percentage of being Jewish. And that brings me to where it is today, which is amazing. All I can say is life in the Czech Republic for Jews today is amazing. There are people finding out that they have a percentage of Jewish DNA, and they are learning about Judaism. There are, in Prague itself, about 6 congregations, and all of the big cities, many of the big cities, there are congregations. And when we were there, we had the pleasure of being invited to this Brit, and the fellow that has the kippah was a Czech young man who in 2019, he was going to rabbinical school in Germany, and he was going to come back and be a rabbi in the Czech Republic, the first Czech-born rabbi. And he is today. He has a wonderful congregation, and he's just an incredible guy, and I can't wait to see him again. We'll be back in November. And now I want to tell you what's actually happening here in Newbridge. So Herb said to me, what do you want for your 80th birthday? And I said, I want to check Torah. And so we've made it happen. We contacted London, and we have made the loan happen. And it's currently in Western Massachusetts being restored, and we're picking it up actually next week. So it will be here. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the town that it was from, because it turns out that this Torah is from the town that was my inspiration for this whole, well, it's the source of my inspiration, because the Torah that was restored 7.5 years ago was also from a town called Prestita, and that's the town that this Torah is from. And so I think that's, I call this invisible threads, because all these amazing coincidences were constantly happening. So here's Prestitsa, small town, small congregation, but you can see this is the synagogue right here, and this is the sanctuary. And in Prestitsa, this is the location. They have every town in the Czech Republic and also in many other places in Europe. There's a huge town square. This was facing the town square. Turns out there was this really sweet story about the priest of the church, the minister of the church nearby. The rabbi and this minister of the church used to go for walks every Saturday around the town square. They were best friends, and everybody in the town knew about this collegial friendship that existed between these two men. They talk about it today. It is real. And so right before we left in 2019, they invited me to the historian, archivist, and the mayor invited me to speak in Prestitsa, and I did. It was in the Historical Society building, and Herb and I walked into this building, and it was filled with chairs, and I quietly said to Herb, you know, if 2 people show up, I'll really be surprised. Turns out that the place was filled like it is today. Standing room, people. I was giving a talk about Torah and what it was, because I had a series of photographs that I had taken while our Torah was being restored, and this was part of an exhibit that was opening that night. And the place was filled, and people were, I obviously don't speak, not obviously, but I don't speak Czech. But my co-author of the book that he and I wrote together was translating for me. And afterwards, after the exhibit, and afterwards everybody was standing in line asking him questions. Obviously, they didn't ask me because I couldn't respond. But and we stayed at least an hour after the talk because everybody wanted to learn about Torah, which I thought was amazing, absolutely amazing. So today, if you would walk through Prestitsa, this is this building here, this yellow building. That's the synagogue. It's now a clothing store. And the street that's right over here is called Jewish Street. That's where all the businesses were. The Jews themselves lived within the community, but just as Jews do today, they clustered in the town. And so all of these were Jewish businesses, and there were also businesses in the town square itself as well. They were very much a part of the community. And the most incredible thing happened to us when we were there. I was very excited about going to Prestitsa, and the man with the back is our guide. What we did every day was visit the information booth to find out what was going on Jewishly in each town that we visited. And we approached this information center, and the woman behind the counter said, you're late. You have to go down 1 block and turn to the right. They're waiting for you. And Julia said, what? What? He said, no, we're not expected. She said, yes, you're expected there. Go there. So the three of us ran down the street, and we're standing in front of this building with the door open, and in front of the door is the mayor and the vice mayor greeting us. And Julia said, these two are Americans and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out they were expecting some people from London. And believe it or not, it was a group from the Westminster Synagogue. So we walked in and then greeted them, and they were blown away. They were blown away that we were there. But this is the Rabbi Emeritus of the Westminster Synagogue, and on this memorial is a list of all of the citizens of Prestitsa who perished during the Shoah, and now we are going to read their names. So Marlene and Judy and Herb are going to read their names. And please don't expect perfect check.
I'm going to read the names of a family of 3: Yindrik Adler, Helena Adlerova, and Ruzhina Adlerova. Then there was Otto Bloch, Bedrich Gross, and a family of 6: Karel Hanak, Ershman Hanak, Yirji Hanak, Ella Hanakova, Ermina Hanakova, and Ruzhina Hanakova.
Alfred Hartman, Yosef Hartman, Parvel Hartman, Bedrishka Hartmanova, like this. Camilla Hartmanova, Valerie Hartmanova, Ota Klein, Anoshka Kleinova, Olga Kleinova, Anosht Kurnada, Emily Kernadova.
Adolf Ornstein, Karla Ornsteinova, 5-year-old Vera Bikova, Marie Bikova, Emil Rubček, Kamil Rubček, Arnoska Rubčekova,
Zeldinka Strikadova, Otto Shanser, Hanna Shanser, Hedika Shanserova, Hanna Shanserova. This one is a hard one. Matildida, Walding Stova, Edward Wiegel, Anna Wigalova, and Samuel Wigalova.
before we move away from those names, I invite us all who feel moved to do so to rise in body or spirit and to join me in reciting the Kaddish for them as well as for all those who have perished and perhaps do not have someone who has recited Kaddish for them. Itkadal v'itkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirute ve'yamlich malchute, b'chai echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shalama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Thank you, Sheila, for your very interesting and remarkable presentation and for using this opportunity, which is a time, really a day of sadness and remembrance, but also hope, to announce to our community that we will soon be the guardians, thank you, the guardians of a Torah from Prestitsa. We are planning to make a very special celebration on June 5th, which is Shavuot, the holiday of the receiving of the Torah. How could there be a better time? So it's a Sunday morning, and we will send out more details about it. We'll have a service that's brief in the synagogue, and we will celebrate, and we will read from this Torah, which happens to be 300 years old, approximately. So it's something really special that is coming to Newbridge. And it is thanks to this experience that Sheila and Herb had and her birthday wish. How many of us really have wished for something like that for our 80th birthday? So, and got it. That's pretty amazing. So thank you all for coming, and may the memories of all those who perished be a blessing to us.